This is the Hyperframe. It's a 13 balls per second board. It has a 9-volt battery. As you can see, the wiring is set up so that it has some protection with some wire covers on it. You've got the solenoid or the clapper. You've got the cabling that goes up to the trigger. The trigger has a small micro switch behind the trigger there. And the way it's set up is that the battery goes into the top one, and then the switch goes into the next one down, and then the solenoid goes into the one on the right there. The buttons here on the right are a little inset, so you have to either use a fingernail or just something that you're able to get kind of in there. And you got to make sure that these screws here, that they never get too tight. You want to keep them just about a half of a turn loose. The way the modes work on the board is simply the top button right here. You push and hold that one until you see it flashing semi. You push it again, that goes to burst mode. We've got 4 balls to 8 balls per second. That's the burst mode option. Those are adjustable by pushing this other button, and the bottom one, you have to kind of push it. There you go. And then you can actually adjust up to, I believe it's 10 balls is the maximum, and then it resets itself. So go up to 10, and you've got the fastest burst mode option, and then push the bottom one again, and that sets it. The hyper mode is my favorite mode. You push that top one, switch it, and it says hyper. You only get 10 balls per second in hyper mode, but that is actually a really cool mode. You basically push the bottom one to set it, and you can adjust it again up to 10. So I'm going to leave that right at 10, right there. Now I've got some air in it, so this actually should fire here. I'll explain how the on-off works in a second, but let me move some stuff because it's kind of loud. But basically, we're firing here. We're in hyper mode, so and this is actually the on-off that came with the Hyperframe. This is the stock one. I don't really recommend this one as much as I recommend an actual on-off from an RT, which looks like this. That's an on-off from an RT. That's actually a little bit better option just because it's from Airgun Design, and it was just, in my opinion, it's made a little bit better, but the on-off that came with the Hyperframe is a good one as well. Okay, I loosened it up with a little flathead screwdriver just along the lip that's right there. That's one way of getting it out, or getting some actual pliers and being able to actually just pull it out. They like to get stuck in there a little bit just because the pin is so short on this. It has a very similar on-off pin to the RT one, as you can see there, but the other element of it that's really important is the spacer. It's this guy right here that puts basically right there, and then your normal stock on-off valve area there. So those are the components to the on-off, and you want to make sure those are in the right order, as you see here, that the spacer basically goes right there, and then the on-off valve is at the bottom. And of course you've got your normal 2 O-rings at the bottom. They're stair-stepped basically into each other, and those are stock. So your stock on-off stays in there at the bottom, and you use your stock valve that basically slides in there. But then it's a spacer, and then it's the top of the on-off there, and that slides all together. And because of the size of this actual pin here, that's kind of what helps give it a little bit more of that lighter trigger pull that the actual solenoid clapper can actually be able to adjust to. So make sure it's in that correct order, otherwise it won't work. Sometimes this pin, once you push it in, that pin should be just about sitting out like that, not by much at all. I'm pushing down on it and I can feel it sealing it pretty well there. But that's pretty much the point that you want it there. This also will not work very well at all with a mechanical frame. You'll short stroke, you'll have problems all day long. So don't try to use this same on-off with a mechanical frame. The electric solenoid is supposed to be able to just tap it and be able to just continually tap it so that it actually will activate it and it won't do anything else. So same concept with the RT on-off. And again, the reason I recommend this is it's all one piece, so you're not losing parts. It's also pretty solid. This basically just slides in there. I get my fingernail in there. And so when you have all these other components out, it's real simple because it's just a slide in. You basically just go on top of the two O-rings that are there, and you can just slide that guy in. And it's basically almost a plug and play type of situation. And it looks a little cleaner too. I like it. That pin goes down again really low. The only other element about the RT one, and potentially about the actual Hyperframe one, is that that pin has to be a certain length or it won't activate correctly, or it might have too much pressure on it. So sometimes with the RT ones, you have to get the right on-off pin. If you have one that's too long, you can always shave it down, but you want to be very careful doing that. I've got a full kit of those on-off pins that I've played with, and I found that close to the Automag length, or the stock one, which I think is about 7.75, I believe is the actual length. That one works pretty well, or shorter. But if you go too short, it gets stuck in there. That's what I've noticed, and it won't activate at all. But that's basically the on-off that you want to be using for the Hyperframe. And again, the Hyperframe, pretty simple little guy, but it actually really rips and really rocks. I've always been a really big fan of these guys, and my lighting here, there we go. The only other thing I can mention was that this screw right here has to be actually longer because it's not the normal. This distance right here is actually thicker than your normal I-frame or any other stock trigger frame for an Automag, so you have to get a longer screw to be able to reach it into the body. And then I put these covers on these cables to make it a lot stronger, so when there's pressure from the actual grip pad or grip plate, that actually will push down and won't hurt or pinch those cables, because I've had cables get cut because of that on there. So and I would always recommend using a brand new battery. I had an old battery, non-name battery before, and it wasn't actuating the solenoid at all, so a nice brand new battery definitely always helps. And that's pretty much it. And yeah, so let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.